authors, I'm Joanne Morrell, children's and young adult fiction writer and author of short non-fiction for authors. Thanks for joining me for the Hybrid Author podcast, sharing interviews from industry professionals to help you forge a career as a hybrid author, both independently and traditionally publishing your books. You can get the show notes for each episode and sign up for your free author pass over at the Hybrid Author website to discover your writing process, get tips on how to publish productively, and get comfortable promoting your books at www.hybridauthor.com.au. Let's crack on with the episode.
Hello, authors! I hope you're all keeping well in whatever part of the world you reside and listen to the podcast in. Today's interview is with children's author Jevita Nilson, and we're chatting about signing your second book deal, timing, keeping hope alive, staying in the game, contracts, confidence, and much more. So in my author adventure this week, last weekend, I was out with book people for a dinner meeting the fabulous Zanny Louise. Zanny is a well-established children's author and podcaster from New South Wales in Australia. And I also did a workshop with Zanny on the Saturday, which was at the Literature Centre, and that's based out of Fremantle Prison. It's such an amazing setting, and the Literature Centre just holds so many fantastic events. And definitely look them up if you're local to the area, because they've got loads of things happening towards the end of the year. There's reading conference. There's just so much. So definitely go to their website and check it out. But with Zanny's workshop, it was like a 3-4 hour one. There was about 25 of us, big group. And she shared her wisdom on writing, editing, publishing, pitching, marketing, and basically just overall sustaining a creative career. So, the advice from Zanny, she's definitely been in the industry a long time. I felt like I learned some things, and I also felt like I knew a lot of things as well from being there, so that's good. What I liked about Zanny's workshop was at the end she shared about an experience that she had where, she really just had pumped all her work out to publishers, really just had felt really low about how things were, and then, her friend had received a 3-book deal or something like that, and she was just like, trying to be happy for her friend, but she felt really low because things weren't really moving for her. And then all of a sudden she got like 4 different book deals at the same time. And if you feel, especially with social media, we can put it on, and I know I do with Instagram especially, it is flooded with authors I know holding up their books. They're all getting contracts, book deals. Can just feel like sometimes you're left behind and everybody else looks like they're doing amazing, and you just think, why is this not happening for me, or when is it going to happen for me? And you can feel it can definitely not make you feel very good. But she just sort of gave some good self-confidence tips there around keeping on going. The same as in the upcoming interview with Jevita, she shares sort of inspiration on this subject as well, when you can feel a bit low, and how to obviously keep living the dream. So for myself, I have felt a bit low this week actually. I received a double rejection, my first double rejection I've ever had from Larrikin House. So I submitted to them my picture book on Friday, and also my first chapter of my junior fiction series. And I got the rejection on Monday, and that's the quickest rejection I've ever had. And I don't know whether that's a good or a bad thing. I think it's a good thing that they have put me out of my misery quite quickly, so I can then either submit elsewhere. It's quite heartbreaking because I feel like my work fits what they put out. So that was quite hard to take. But onwards and upwards, it is what it is. So I think because of this rejection, I have been feeling a bit lackluster this week, and once again finding my thoughts returning to what it means to take a break from writing, when to recharge. People are feeling burnt out or feeling let down or feeling lost or at a loss with their work, or things aren't moving, things aren't happening, and it all just feels a bit blah. Just there again. But this is the part of the conversation that me and Jevita have in the upcoming interview, and she gives some great tips on how to sort of keep going, push through. But I wonder whether what you think. If you're feeling this way, what do you do? Is it just part and parcel of the game? You just get back on there? I think I've said in the past, when I've had a rejection, I just put it out there again. Then you've got that fresh hope, and then you move on. And I think that's the best way forward, personally. Or do you think it's, it just depends how you feel. If you're feeling you need to have a break, as I said last week in my intro, there was a friend who hadn't wrote for a long time, and they probably felt like they needed that break. And it's probably quite important as well. So I feel like when you're feeling a bit down or a bit lackluster writing, should you keep going or should you take a break to recharge for a while, however long it feels? I'd love to open up the conversation on this post on the podcast on my website. So please pop a comment in the box about what your thoughts are here. Also this week, I shared on social media the Australian Writers Centre blog. If you are keen to learn how to pitch yourself to a podcast, written from the lovely Alison Tate, I featured alongside podcast powerhouses Danny V, Words and Nerds podcast, and Valerie Koo, the So You Want to Be a Writer podcast. And we share our tips on how to pitch yourself to a podcast, do's and don'ts, and things like that. This is my 92nd episode. Danny and Valerie's podcasts are really well established. They're both into like the 500, 600 episodes. They've got massive listenerships, so their sort of take on things is different from mine, but it's also relevant and interesting all the same. I will share the link to this blog post on the show notes. So if you love the podcast or any of the episodes has helped you further in your author career, you can now pay it forward by buying me a coffee over at buymeacoffee.com/thehybridauthor. Let's all support each other.
Jevita Nilson is a published children's author from Perth who is passionate about writing lyrical fiction and non-fiction picture books. Her stories weave together nature, family, emotions, and the eternal joys of childhood. She also writes fun, rhyming picture books for the preschool market. Her first book, Happy Hearts, was published in 2020, and her second picture book will be released in 2025. Welcome to the Hybrid Author Podcast, Jevita.
Thanks for having me, Jo.
We love to have you. We're absolutely thrilled. So tell us, how did you come to be a writer and in the children's genre?
So writing something I've always enjoyed ever since I was a child, but it was 2018, 5 years ago, that I started focusing on writing for children. So that was the year my mum passed away, and I turned to writing really as a way to process some of those thoughts and emotions I had, around her death. And at the time, my two children were both very little. They were both under 4. So I wanted to write them a book that would help them understand, the death of a loved one, and also to remember their nana, because they were so little at the time. So I started at that point writing a picture book and researching the children's book industry. And that was really how my first picture book, Happy Hearts, came about. Ever since then, I've been learning and developing my writing in that picture book space, and also writing a bit of junior fiction here and there as well.
Oh, amazing. It's such a beautiful story. Very sad, obviously, as well. But do you guys read that book often still together?
Yeah, here and there, my kids will ask to read it. It always feels a bit funny reading your own book over and again. But the kids love to get it out, and it's a way for them to remember their nana. So for them, I think it brings a bit of joy and happiness as opposed to being sad for them.
Yeah, no, that's lovely. And I love how obviously it's helped you as well, get your feelings out, and writing can be quite powerful that way. Well, today's topic is on signing your second book deal. So we'll start sort of with the time process. So when you put out your first book and then have continued to pitch to put out your second, what was the time frame from doing that first book to now signing your second deal?
So it's been about 4 years from signing my first contract to signing my second. So in hindsight, the first book deal for Happy Hearts came about really quickly. I think it was a bit of beginner's luck, and maybe the right book at the right time. So when I wrote Happy Hearts and obviously edited it and got it to a point that I was happy with it, I sent it off to about 8 publishers. And then it was about 3 months later that I heard from the children's publisher at New Holland, and she said she loved it and she wanted to take it to acquisitions. And then it was probably maybe 2 or 3 months later that I was signing that first contract. So that whole process from writing that book, fine tuning it, sending it out to publishers, and then signing the contract was probably only about 8 to 9 months.
Wow.
And so, I've since learned that's very quick. And in comparison, it has taken me another 4 years and probably 80 to 90 submissions, to secure my second book deal. Yeah, which is so a much longer process second time round.
Yeah, wow. So when you obviously 8 to 9 months and then the book came out, were you sort of promoting that first book? Were you still pitching then at that time, the second one, or were you just sort of not basking in the glory? I just feel that's not, enjoying promoting the first one, or were you actually submitting for the second one?
So I was definitely still writing and submitting. So it came out in August 2020. And I'd written a few others and I was submitting sort of here or there. But it was probably 2021 that I really started to, pick up in my writing and make that concerted effort to submit and to pitch to lots of different publishers. So probably the last 2 years have been, really full on in terms of trying to get my work out there.
Yeah. And it's just that 2 years, and it is a huge effort with family, with job, with life commitments and things, it can be quite a slog. So, I mean, how did you go about keeping momentum, I guess, and motivation to keep pitching, keep putting your work out there? Obviously 2 years you maybe had accumulated some rejections and what did you just say before, like 80 or 90?
Yeah.
I guess was that for a variety of works, not just say like one work?
Yeah, definitely. So I've probably over that period of time written 20 or so picture books. So,
wow.
I've been pitching and submitting different ones to different publishers. But, it's definitely been a roller coaster ride over that time. I think anyone that's writing would say there's highs and lows. So, I've 100% had moments where I've thought about giving up. When you're constantly being rejected or you're not hearing from publishers with all these submissions, all sorts of things start to go through your head. You think, gosh, maybe that first book that I wrote was a fluke and maybe I'm not really good at writing, or, I'm never going to get another contract. I'm forever going to have one book. So I'm quite an emotional person and I often really struggle with the rejections, particularly, if I think my book is a perfect fit for a publisher and I don't hear from them, or sometimes I've got to that acquisition stage. So it's almost there and then they've said no. So, when I get those types of rejections, I often have, a few days where I'm really low and I feel like I want to give up. Or there's times, you'll look on Instagram and you see everyone else is getting contracts and that's
it's
really
full of that, isn't it? I know.
It's terrible for motivation. It might sound a little bit corny, but the thing that just keeps me going, two things is hope and passion. So I love what I do. I love writing. I love crafting words into a story, and I love the possibility that, my words will one day be transformed into a picture book and enjoyed by kids and families. So, whenever I'm in that low point and I think about giving up, I always think to myself, what if that next submission is a yes? What if the next story that I write is the one that a publisher's just been waiting for? It's got to be that passion for the writing. And just that hope of, finding a publisher who loves my work. So that's what I guess keeps me going with coming up against those rejections. I think you've also got to celebrate the small wins along the way. If you do a pitch and they request your manuscript, or, you talk to a publisher and they love your work, but ultimately it might be a no, but just take those little wins, take those positive comments from a publisher, and you've got to use those as wind in your sails, I think, to keep you going.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. It's so interesting, because obviously when you're chasing your first book deal, it's all about trying to get that, and you don't actually have leverage to be like, well, I've been published before, to kind of think, well, so that proves I'm good enough, or if you have those type of thoughts. But to hear you sort of say then, because you have been published before and then it's taking a lot longer, then you're starting to question that publication. That's pretty interesting. But I guess if you had work that was getting taken to acquisition acquisitions? Do the publishers actually, do they let you know that and then they let you know, no, it was actually a no?
Yeah, I've had a few that have gone to acquisitions and they've always let me know that they're taking
Right.
it. So there's that
Yeah.
hope. You get really excited that this might be
Yeah.
the next book, and they come back and for whatever reason it's a no. And yeah, that's often probably the worst rejection. I think, because
Right.
you feel like you're so close
Oh,
to
yeah.
getting that next book deal. But
Would
yeah, it's
that
all
be like one of your small wins? Because at getting to acquisitions you're almost there, you're almost there.
definitely, at the time it feels really horrible because you feel like, it's a rejection, but you've just got to give it a bit of time, and then you can look back on that and say, that actually was a really big thing to get to that stage. So, there's thousands of books that come across editors' desks. So for yours to, for them to like that and to take it to acquisitions, yeah, it's definitely a win. So you got to write all those down and keep them for when you're having a bad day.
Yeah, that's it. And obviously you said, you've written like 20 picture books and they're all out on different submissions and things. When do you just keep creating and keep putting work out there? Or when with certain picture books, or when you're either not hearing from a publisher, the date has passed when you're supposed to hear, or you've had a rejection, do you get back on the horse and continue putting that one out? Or do you kind of let that sit and move on to the next one? Or how's your process been
Yeah.
there?
I usually, because I've got a few different books at the moment that I feel, are publishable, ready to be published. So, I might pick a picture book that might sit with, a particular publisher, and it might be there for a few months. So then I'll, either work on creating other picture books, or I'll look at some of my other work and submit it to other publishers. So yeah, it's a bit of a juggle as to, I've got a spreadsheet, manage it all and see where everything's going. But yeah, a bit of balance between submitting and pitching, and then also writing other things at the same time. But yeah, I usually give it, most publishers have on their website, it might be 3 or 4 months to get back to you if you're just going through the slush pile. So yeah, I give it that time, and then if I haven't heard, I'll submit it elsewhere.
Yeah, it's so weird, these submitting to publishers. Some of them are getting creative where it's like the children's is the first Monday of the new season. It's like, just give us a bloody date. Like
Yes, you definitely need a spreadsheet to remember who's open and when and how.
Yeah.
So lots of reminders on the phone to make sure you don't miss an open.
Yeah, no, that's good advice. Well, on to your second contract. So is it Cisco Publishing? Is that how you say it? Or
CSIRO, yeah,
okay,
publishing. So, yeah.
not right at all, but yeah. And then from New Holland, I guess. So what have been the differences there, like with the contracts and things? Has there been much of a difference with anything that you found popping out in the contract?
Contract specific, probably no, but I'm still at very early stages of the publishing process with CSIRO. So far, it's really been positive. They're very professional, very collaborative, which I love. Looks like this book will be coming out in early 2025. So it's about 2 years from signing the contract to the book coming out, which is a little bit longer than my first book. I think it took about 18 months for Happy Hearts to come out. But I think 2 years for a picture book is pretty standard.
Seems to be these days. Did they say why it takes that long? I always felt it used to be like a year, but yeah, it feels like it's backing up a bit more, isn't it?
A lot of it depends on the illustrator. So if they have a really busy schedule, then it might take longer. So they might not be able to get to illustrate it for another 6 months. So that's going to push things out. I think it's printing overseas as well. So there's a whole lot of factors with a picture book in terms of, and I think publisher lists as well are so busy. They're juggling a lot of books at the same time. So yeah, it's definitely a long process, but worth it in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And how have you felt signing your second contract? Like, do you feel more confident, I guess, with this experience than say your first one? I don't know,
Yeah, definitely second time around. I think I feel much more confident in my knowledge. So, I felt comfortable in making suggestions and asking questions about the contract and the publishing process. Whereas, first time around, I just had no idea what to expect.
It's like, yes.
Yeah, I didn't really know, what my role was and what I should say and what I shouldn't say. And so, I kind of just went along for the ride first time, but I have a bit more knowledge behind me. So, I'm confident in asking questions and suggesting things. So, that's been helpful.
That's amazing. And are you still in the pitching publishers game for all your other works as well, looking for the third deal?
Yeah, definitely. I'm always trying to find new opportunities. So I just did a pitch, a couple of weeks ago through the ASA literary speed dating, and through CYA I did an assessment as well with a publisher. So still submitting through the slush pile as well. I did one on the weekend. So yeah, I'm just definitely trying to get all my different works out there.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And is it rare? Is it rare to get like a 2-book picture deal or a 3-book picture deal? Is it with publishers? Have you ever heard that? I don't know if I have per se.
I have heard of a few people. It might be a series of picture books that they're working on, or so I have heard of a couple of people that have got a series or a couple of contracts. So that would be the ultimate, I guess. But it's probably more rare than the norm.
Oh, wow. So do you've obviously been at this for a while, and do you have any advice for authors who are, with their one book? Because for aspiring authors and chasing their first book, it's such a big thing to try and break in. But I think that we do forget sometimes, like then what comes after, what comes next, because we're so focused on just getting in initially. And I know a lot of people, it's actually quite difficult, I think, to crack the next book or unless you get like a 2-book deal. So do you have any advice for our listeners who maybe have one book out there who are going down the traditional route and looking for a second book and are maybe starting to think, oh no, it's not going to happen for me, or it's just taking so long? Or
the only advice that I can give is just keep going. There's no secret formula. There's no magic pill that's going to get you, your next contract. The only thing that's going to get you there is hard work and persistence. Over this period of 5 years that I've been writing, I've made over 100 submissions. I have entered my work into competitions. I have, pitched my work. I've done assessments. So I've just kept going, and keep writing as well. As I said, I've written over 20 picture books. Some of them, or probably most of them, will never be published. But every time I write a new book, it teaches me something. And you just never know when that book's going to be the right book for a publisher. So, you just have to keep working hard, keep writing and keep persisting, because I truly believe that, if you keep doing that, then you'll get a second contract. Or even if it's, you haven't got a first contract, if you just keep pushing, keep learning and developing it, you'll get there. I truly believe that.
yeah, oh, that's amazing advice. And you're right, because if you stop, then it's never going to happen.
Yeah,
Unless
definitely.
you do it yourself, that's even another ball game as well. Well, it sounds like you've been super proactive with putting yourself out there. And much like yourself, I take the rejections not as badly these days, but in the past, very down. But I think if you then sort of follow it up with sending it out again, then that hope floats up again, doesn't it? It's like,
yes, definitely. I definitely do that. Every time I get a rejection, I usually spend, a few hours having a bit of a cry and getting upset, and then I sit down and I do another submission. So that makes me feel a little bit better that I've done something proactive.
Yeah. It's so time consuming as well, though. I would imagine you've got probably a good database of when the publishers are open and all that sort of thing, and maybe having like a template for them is a quicker process. But you've still they ask for different things, and to tailor it to them, it takes time, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does. And I find myself, even if I've submitted that book a few times, I'll find myself rewriting my synopsis or rewriting my bio. And so, it can take a couple of hours every time you're sitting down to do a new submission. But it makes me feel like, I'm taking a step forward. So sometimes a rejection can feel like a step back, but, just getting yourself out there again, it feels like a step forward.
Absolutely. And are you allowed to tell us about the upcoming picture book, or not really? It's all secret at the moment.
Bit, so it's a non-fiction picture book. Sort of I write in quite a lyrical style, so it's got that lyrical style to it. But that's probably all I can say at this stage.
Okay.
But I'm very excited to see this one come out.
That's amazing. And do you, if you have ever had a rejection from a publisher, do you then pitch that publisher again with something different, or you're really just looking at where the work fits in? Or
definitely. So I've made contacts with a few different editors, through assessments that I've done or pitches. So sometimes, I'll send them work and they'll say, no, this is great, but not particularly for us right now. So I'll always go back to them and say, oh, I've got a few other things that I've written. What about this and this? So yeah, definitely, try again with those publishers, because you never know which one of your works is going to fit in with them.
And do you think like going for your second book deal, having had that first publication under your belt, has helped you like get a deal? Or not really? It's all about the work, isn't it? And what they want to put out. I think
definitely it's all about the work. So early on, I felt like that would help. I could say in my submissions, I have a published book, but it felt like as more and more time went on, it actually felt like it was maybe hindering me. It's been 3 or 4 years since my book came out. So that might just be a personal, self-doubt that I had. But I definitely think the editors or publishers will just look at the work on face value. And if you're a new author and you haven't had a book out, then if it's great work, they'll definitely pick you up.
Yeah, no, that's good advice. And I'll just say another interview I'd done recently and with Leanne White from Wild Eyed Press, and she was talking about a book that she received shortly after about, I think it was like a bush book or something like that with koalas and things, and she loved it, but she had just put something out like that, and she turned that one away, and she said she saw that book go on to win awards and get picked up with someone else, but for them it wasn't the right time, it wasn't the right anything.
Definitely. I often think timing is a lot of it. With my second book with CSIRO, timing was a huge factor. So when I spoke with Melinda, who's the commissioning editor there, she talked about, my book coming across her desk, and she said it was just perfect timing for what they were looking for at that time. And she said to me, if it was a year earlier, perhaps we would have overlooked that. But it was just the right book at the right time. So I definitely think timing comes into it a lot.
Yeah, it's amazing. And Meg McKinley, she had said her book, How to Make a Bird, I think she'd wrote that about 10 years ago, and literally it only got published. It was its time like a year or two ago to come out. Like, it's just insane. So nothing's ever wasted, definitely. I don't think.
No, I think, and always hold on to, there might be a book you have written and it's been rejected heaps of times, but don't get rid of it. Sit it there, and it might take 5 or 10 years, but definitely its time will come.
Yes, it will pay off. Everything will work out.
Yeah. That's the dream.
No, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time and expertise, Jevita. That's been fantastic. I think it's really going to inspire and provide hope and stuff to our listeners who are trying to get their second book deal, as well as their first as well. Can you tell us where we can discover you and your books, in stores or online?
Sure. Probably best place to find me is on Instagram. So my handle is jevita.nilson.write, and you should be able to order a copy of my book, Happy Hearts, via your local bookstore or online, or you can head to my website, which is jevitanilson.com.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Jevita. That was great.
Thanks, Jo.
So there you have it, folks. They're super inspiring, Jevita Nilson, and I hope wherever you are in your publishing adventure, Jevita's words have helped spur you on. And go and check out her books if you haven't already. Next time on the Hybrid Author Podcast, we have another lone-episode from me, and I'll be chatting further on the topic of preparing for podcast appearances. In light of that blog post, I thought I had a fair bit to sort of include around that as well. So I wish you well in your author adventure this next week. That's it from me. Bye for now.
That's the end for now, authors. I hope you're further forward in your author adventure after listening, and I hope you'll listen next time. Remember to head on over to the Hybrid Author website at www.hybridauthor.com.au to get your free author pass. It's bye for now.